We move on now to item 5B, a report by the Secretariat on its activities. Mr. Tim Curtis, the floor is yours to present this item to us.
Thank you, Mr. Chairperson. We have been quite busy this year, so I hope you'll indulge me a little bit of time to go through this report on the work we have done. Allow me to start by providing some information about the framework of the report. It concerns the activities of the Secretariat from January 2016 until June 2017. In that sense, it is cumulative with the report presented at the 11th session last year. It does not cover activities we have done since June 2017. It is to be read in tandem with the financial statement regarding the Convention's Fund for the Safeguarding of the Intangible Cultural Heritage, document 7 of this committee. It reflects the extent of the Secretariat. It also reflects the extent of the Secretariat's work based on the 38C5 results framework, and more specifically, the performance indicators of expected result 5. It covers also the Secretariat's utilization of the funds made available from the Intangible Cultural Heritage Fund for the budget line other functions of the committee as approved by the Bureau. So in this context, the document is articulated in 3 parts. Okay. Believe there's a presentation coming, but I'll continue. In this context, the document, do we have a technical problem? Okay. In this context, the document is articulated in 3 parts. The first is on key achievements. The second is key challenges we encountered and ways forward. And then there is an annex with a detailed table presenting an assessment of the progress against targets for the 5 performance indicators of the 38C5. Dear members, allow me to present you briefly the key achievements the details of which you will find in paragraphs 5 to 23. For the sake of time, I will go quickly through our various areas of work, a number of which will be more thoroughly addressed in the framework of other items at the present session, and I will start with the statutory support and the work articulated around 3 lines of action. Firstly, the organization of meetings. We held no less than 15 statutory meetings, which were organized between January 2016 and June 2017, which led to the adoption of some key decisions for the Convention. We also treated 87 nominations to the lists, 11 proposals for the register, and 22 requests of international assistance. We succeeded to be on schedule for the 2017 as well as the 2018 cycles, despite the workload, thanks to the rationalization of our work. We also undertook the examination of accreditation and renewal of NGOs, with 55 new requests for accreditations and 44 reports in view of the renewal have been treated by the Secretariat. Concerning ratifications, it is always good to announce 11 new state parties have ratified the Convention in this period, and there was 1 extension of a territorial application. The Convention has now reached 175 state parties, near universality. Concerning intangible cultural heritage and sustainable development, you will recall that there was a new chapter in the operational directives adopted in 2016 and aligned with the 2030 Sustainable Development Goals. The operationalization of the linkages between intangible cultural heritage and sustainable development have started with our development of policy guidance notes and capacity building activities. Concerning international assistance, you will also recall that in 2016, the General Assembly decided to increase the ceiling of international assistance to be examined by the Bureau from $25,000 United States to $100,000 United States. And we can already see that this has been attractive to member states, as before this decision, only 19% of requests were directed towards the Bureau, and the rest were to the committee, whereas since the decision, 73% of the requests we have received went to the Bureau rather than the committee. This means that state parties do not need to choose between an international request and a nomination filed to the list or register. Technical assistance is also showing itself to be a highly useful mechanism to supporting submitting states in the finalizations of their requests. However, as we will see later, a lot still remains to be done on analyzing and monitoring the results of the implementation of these projects, which have the potential to become a major operational but also learning tool for ICH safeguarding. And in this sense, I refer to item 8A and document 8A, where this will be discussed in some more detail. Another key area of our work concerns knowledge management, which plays a central role in terms of visibility, as well as provides a central working tool for both the Secretariat as well as state parties. An important development in that respect has been the creation of tools for online submission of the periodic reports. The objectives of this undertaking are to have, firstly, more updated information available in one click, while at the same time being able to build on past reports. Secondly, to facilitate the submission of periodic reports by avoiding back and forth with the Secretariat on technical issues concerning completeness or word numbers. And I'll present more about this under item 8C. Thirdly, to have an overview of what is going on in a country on a single page, as well as to make better use of the information provided by making it available through the online search tool by keywords. At this stage, the system is working for reports regarding elements inscribed on the urgent safeguarding list, and we are now moving on to setting the system up for the reports on the implementation of the Convention. This has all been made possible thanks to the generous contribution of the Republic of Korea to the Intangible Cultural Heritage Fund, for which we thank them. Again, under item 10, we'll come back to that issue. Allow me now to mention briefly the work on the elaboration of the overall results framework, which has kept us quite busy during this period. And it is the subject of item 9 to be discussed later, so I'm not going to elaborate on it here, but I did want to mention we spent quite a lot of time working on this issue. I also want to point out that we have been collaborating actively with the Category 2 centers, and we've held 2 annual meetings between the centers with the participation of the Secretariat, which have allowed us to exchange information on recent developments in the life of the Convention and to discuss new perspectives for fields of cooperation and future synergies amongst the centers, as well as between UNESCO and the centers. And I've been recently informed that the center in Algeria is ready to become operational, and this will be an important partner for us for the effective implementation of the Convention in Africa. So we are looking very much forward to that. The renewal of the agreements between UNESCO and 4 states parties for the continuation of activities of 4 Category 2 centers has recently been approved by the Executive Board of UNESCO, and these concerns Bulgaria for the Sofia Center, China for CREHAP, Japan for IRCI, and the Republic of Korea for ICHCAP. Recently, the Internal Oversight Services of UNESCO completed, they called it an audit of the UNESCO's management framework for Category 2 centers, in which it did underline the heavy workload of UNESCO for the UNESCO Secretariat for ensuring the cooperation with the evaluation of Category 2 centers, as well as some mismatched expectations which occur between UNESCO and Category 2 centers. And in that regards, it is always of utmost importance for Category 2 centers to be aligned with the approved program and budget for the organization, the 39C5, and adhere to its strategic vision and guiding principles. In the near future, the governing bodies of UNESCO might take some decisions in regards to this. Having said this, I'm happy to say that I think as far as the centers working on intangible cultural heritage are concerned, we can note visible progress and improvements as regards the alignments of their work plans with the C5 and the overall programs and priorities of UNESCO. I'd like to now turn to capacity building, which is really the core and the basis of our operational action in support of state parties for the implementation of the Convention, and remains a high priority for state parties to the Convention. This takes a lot of our time, also the capacity building work. And we've been initiating activities mainly through UNESCO field offices with the backstopping and support from headquarters in about 70 countries over the last 3 years. We have some multi-year projects based on the global UNESCO capacity building program for safeguarding intangible cultural heritage, which are funded mainly or almost exclusively through voluntary contributions to the ICH fund or extra budgetary resources channeled through funds in trust agreements. And we've had some now, we've been able to have some external evaluations on these large multi-year, multi-country projects, and notably the Japanese Funds in Trust project for the Asia-Pacific region and the Flanders project for PALOP countries in Africa. And they highlighted that significant progress was indeed made in the areas of mobilizing stakeholders, strengthening institutional infrastructure required for safeguarding, and other things such as developing community-based inventorying frameworks and collaborations among countries. But there are challenges. We need more support. More support is required, to strengthen capacities in the areas of preparing safeguarding plans and developing policies and legislation across multiple sectors, particularly in the context of national development policies and engaging with things such as Agenda 2030. In this regard, you're invited to watch a video training on policy development in the field of intangible cultural heritage and to get an update on new materials during the information sessions on the capacity building program, which will be happening. We've developed other ways in terms of capacity building. We've developed also what we call the fully fledged needs assessment approach. And we've used this approach now in 15 countries, which has proven to be very efficient in order to design capacity building projects that respond specifically to the country needs. The activity starts from the premise that the involvement of national authorities from the very beginning of a project cycle, what we call the needs assessment phase, is a prerequisite for the elaboration of credible proposals, and especially for their effective implementation. In that sense, UNESCO is providing specialized expertise to carry out on-site consultations in a potentially beneficiary country in order to identify these needs. UNESCO then develops a multi-year project based on the needs identified, which can be addressed by the capacity building program. So by identifying the needs with the participation of beneficiaries, including government agencies, communities, experts and stakeholders, the approach lays the foundation for enhanced ownership of the project and which results from it. Also, the implementation of the capacity building strategy is supported by the global network of facilitators, and many of you will have come across them. So we organize regular regional meetings to share experiences and lessons learned and maintain a level of competence and knowledge up to date with the developments of the Convention. Facilitators are key partners for the Secretariat to have a greater outreach. And so, of course, as the Convention is expanding, we also need to expand our network of partners. In the same vein, we have noted in terms of capacity building, tertiary education has a central role to support capacities of countries in implementing the Convention. Of course, universities train the future administrators, decision makers, and managers of intangible cultural heritage. So we've conducted 2 regional surveys and held symposia on how universities might integrate intangible cultural heritage in their postgraduate programs. And we've done this in Asia and the Pacific, as well as in Latin America and the Caribbean. We also provided support to the European Network on Cultural Management and Policy, ENCTAC, to do the same. Category 2 centres have been strong partners in this work, and you may be pleased to know that ICHCAP is organising a side event in collaboration with the Secretariat on this topic tomorrow. Dear members, the capacity building program started 6 years ago, so we also took time to assess it and envision the future. In particular, a strategy workshop with facilitators from all regions of the world was held in Bangkok, Thailand in March 2017 to take stock and reflect on the experiences and lessons learned. The meeting highlighted several new strategic directions for the new work, for the network, and for the delivery of the program at country level. These included the continued need and challenge to build institutional structures, legal and political frameworks, human resources, and others. There's a continuing demand for capacity building services expressed by member states. And also the services themselves need to adapt to the evolving capacities of the member states. And these have also been expressed collectively through the decisions of the General Assembly and the Committee. So on this basis, an updated strategy is submitted to the Committee. We will be submitting it to you under item 6, and I invite you to read, of course, document com/6 for more details. We also were able to underline a new material that had been requested to us by the Committee at its 10th session, which is the guidance note for inventorying intangible cultural heritage, the purpose of which is to provide guidance to state parties, NGOs and communities on the process of inventorying intangible cultural heritage and the preparation of inventories of elements of intangible cultural heritage. This note is available on our website in English and French. During the course of the reporting period, we have also started working more vigorously on a key, but yet as so far relatively neglected, safeguarding measure of the Convention, a measure that is mentioned in the text of the Convention itself under Articles 2.3 and Article 14, which is the transmission of intangible cultural heritage through formal and non-formal education. So in order to kickstart this process, we held a strategic intersectoral consultation meeting with colleagues from the education sector in Unesco, and particularly with regional offices for education, the education institutes and programs. And this meeting was held in May 2017, and I'm really quite glad to report that it was extremely positive. Education colleagues who came acknowledged and understood that ICH can really provide context-specific content and pedagogy for all levels of education, all subjects and a wide range of topics, including education for the prevention of violent extremism, global citizenship education, TVET, technical and vocational training, and these are, as many of you are aware, very prominent in SDG 4 on quality education and lifelong learning. In that sense, it was clear during that meeting, and the report of that meeting is online for you to look at, there was a sense of shared interest between colleagues from the two sectors, as integrating ICH into formal and non-formal education can benefit the ambitions of both, enhancing the transmission and safeguarding of intangible cultural heritage, as well as addressing key issues in improving the quality of education. The intention is that this will be implemented primarily by field officers, and it is clear that close collaboration with the education sector will be indispensable. To this end, we submitted a new funding priority as well as the extension of the capacity building, which is in document 6. An information session will be held on this topic at lunchtime on Wednesday. Concerning intangible cultural heritage and emergencies, at the request of the committee last year, the Secretariat piloted activities on the role communities play in safeguarding ICH at risk in situations of emergency and how it can be mobilized as a tool for preparedness, resilience and reconciliation. Support to the preparation and implementation of the emergency international assistance requests in Côte d'Ivoire, Mali, Niger, and Vanuatu were also done. And I won't go any more on this because this will be discussed under item 15. And finally, in relation to outreach and communications, important steps taken with a view to design a robust framework in order to promote the objectives of the Convention. I'll come to it in a few minutes under the briefing point, which we've included in a revised provisional timetable, with a short, specific presentation of what we've been able to carry out and achieve. And now I'd like to come to looking forward, to looking to the key challenges and way forward that the Secretariat would like to bring to the attention of the committee. And these are detailed in paragraphs 24 to 28 of the document. The document identifies three main challenges in going forward. Firstly, the continued low implementation of the international assistance mechanism, which we will discuss under item 7. Secondly, the implementation of the capacity building strategy, which needs continual adaptation to the evolving of state parties and for which still the demands still exceed the delivery capacity. And finally, the need felt to develop a more robust outreach and communication for the Convention. Dear committee members, it seems that after 10 years dedicated to obtaining ratifications, setting up procedures and mechanisms of the Convention, and supporting its implementation through capacity building, we could consider that the Convention might be entering a next stage, whereby a number of new and emerging issues seem to appear, and the need to assess and broaden its impact at various levels is becoming more and more evident. This calls for a systematic and broad stock-taking of the impact of the Convention, as well as a broader implementation of its activities. A number of items discussed during this committee point to this, such as the discussion on the overall results framework, the relation of intangible cultural heritage to the Sustainable Development Goals, the reflections on the transfer of elements, and through this perhaps on the purposes of the lists, the role of accredited NGOs, amongst others. Of course, capacity building still remains a fundamental priority, but we need to open up new areas of work on the ground, and I'll mention two in which the Secretariat has started investing time and resources, namely ICH and education, which I mentioned briefly, and ICH and emergency situations, which I've also discussed. The possibilities and potential for this Convention are vast, and its future could be bright, but it needs to continue to grow. And in that respect, as has been mentioned, the situation, and I'm afraid to always have to come back to this, the situation regarding the human and financial resources to support this expansion continue to be very worrying. Indeed, as the number of state parties expand, the demands of course increase, while the resources to meet those demands decrease. The draft decision has been elaborated in this sense. Thank you, Mr. Chairperson.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary, for your very long but very rich presentation. I'm very much enlightened by your expose. I now open the floor. Does anybody wish to take the floor? I recognize the distinguished representative from Philippines. Madam Ambassador, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. At the outset, we wish to warmly thank the government and people of the Republic of Korea for hosting us so graciously in this beautiful island of Jeju. We congratulate you on your election as chair of our committee and also the UNESCO Executive Board. We look forward to a very fruitful session under your leadership. We thank the Secretariat led by Mr. Tim Curtis for their report. Despite the serious human and financial resource constraints that they face, we recognize the dedicated work of the Secretariat and the crucial role they play in the overall safeguarding of intangible cultural heritage worldwide. For this reason, we endorse the calls to strengthen the capacities of the Secretariat. We welcome the new states parties to our convention. The new ratifications show that there is a large amount of interest in ICH from all regions of the world. In this regard, we believe that more work has to be carried out in promoting the use of international assistance in other regions, especially in our view for communities and programs in Asia and the Pacific Island states. We support the focus on integrating intangible cultural heritage and education systems. The Philippine National Cultural Heritage Act includes provisions on incorporating intangible cultural heritage in basic education. We shall comment more on this issue on the topic on emergencies when we get to the specific item. Though there will be a separate presentation to be made, as mentioned by Mr. Curtis, we note paragraph 23 on the development of an outreach and communication strategy and would request more information as to which partner company the strategy is being undertaken, its associated costs and timelines, which of the 50 stakeholders were consulted, and what are its basic parameters. It may be useful for the committee to be provided more details before it is endorsed. We appreciate the section on key challenges, particularly the point that the convention is constantly evolving and that the ICH system must adapt accordingly to the changing needs and interests. Stock taking of the impact of the convention in the field would be a necessary exercise to determine its gaps and future directions. We think the committee and General Assembly should engage in more strategic and forward-looking discussions, and the informal ad hoc working group can be one platform to encourage these in-depth reflections. In conclusion, Mr. Chair, our delegation has submitted an amendment to the draft decision that will be co-sponsored by other delegations. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Madam Ambassador and Permanent Delegate of Philippines, for your intervention. And the next speakers on my list is Austria, Mongolia, Turkey, Senegal, Hungary, and Republic of Korea. I now give the floor to distinguished delegate of Austria.
Thank you. First, please let me thank the Republic of Korea for hosting us so generously and making us feel most welcome here. And we were very impressed by the opening ceremony yesterday night. The Austrian delegation also would like to congratulate the Secretariat for the report and for the excellent documents. We appreciate all the achievements, and considering the high workload, we particularly recognize the dedication and commitment by Tim Curtis and his team. It is a pleasure to see that already 175 state parties have committed themselves to safeguarding ICH on their territory, which is nearly universal ratification. A major topic has become the implementation of the new chapter of the operational directives on safeguarding ICH and sustainable development. On the one hand, issues like climate change, urban development, and health certainly have an impact on intangible cultural heritage. On the other hand, ICH can considerably contribute to the implementation of the SDGs, particularly SDG 4. Thus, we welcome the new programmatic focus on ICH and education. Likewise, we continue to support the focus on capacity building. It is satisfying to hear about the number of activities that have taken place already, thanks to the efforts by the Secretariat, but also to the network of facilitators and the new training materials provided online. We are looking forward to working on these topics and sharing our experience with the international community. Likewise, the increase of international assistance requests is very promising. Here we can see the first fruits of increasing the ceiling for submissions via the Bureau. A recurrent topic during the recent General Conference was the protection of culture and the promotion of cultural pluralism in emergency situations, be it armed conflicts, natural or man-made hazards. We welcome the contributions of our convention to this important topic for preparedness, resilience and reconciliation. As regards the monitoring of the convention and the high number of overdue reports, we will come back to this topic later under another item of the agenda. For the time being, just let me congratulate you on the increase of submitted reports compared to last year, thanks to the updated aid memoir for completing the report form, as well as other facilitations like dedicated websites, e-letters and online forums. However, there is still reason for concern about the high number of overdue reports. We welcome the proposed new reporting system based on regions, aligned with the overall results framework and facilitated by regional workshops, capacity building and peer learning. With great interest, we also took note of the outreach and communication strategy of the project carried out with a partner company. If not foreseen under another topic, we would appreciate some more information on the activities carried out, as just also mentioned by our colleague from the Philippines. Thank you.
Thank you, distinguished delegates from Austria. And now, Mongolia, followed by Turkey. I now give the floor to distinguished delegate of Mongolia.
Mr. Chairman, fellow members of the committee, distinguished delegates from the state parties to the convention, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of the Mongolian government and Mongolian people, I would like to express my deep appreciation to the host country, the Republic of Korea, for organizing 12th session of the Intergovernmental Committee for the Safeguarding of Intangible Cultural Heritage here in the beautiful island of Jeju. The role of the Republic of Korea is important in safeguarding ICH in Asia-Pacific region. As a state party to the convention, Mongolia continues to benefit from fruitful cooperations between two countries in this field. Mongolian delegation thanks to the Secretariat for the excellent report and for its continuous support shown to the state party of Mongolia. For instance, the capacity building workshop improving the capacities of ICH-related NGOs in Mongolia was implemented. We are very happy for this fruitful cooperation. I believe everyone will agree that involvement of NGOs and civil society organizations is crucial in safeguarding intangible cultural heritage. Mongolia is honored to work as a committee member for its third year. We believe that our productive collaboration with ICH section of Unesco will continue in the future. It's my great pleasure to invite you in the Mongolian folk art performance to be held at the side events from tomorrow during the lunchtime. In the end, I wish the best of success to Mr. Byung-Kyun Lee for chairing this session. I wish also all successful and efficient 12th session. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mongolia. And now, I'd like to invite the distinguished delegates of Turkey, and Madam, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Let me congratulate the Secretary and his staff for their effort and dedication despite its limited budget and resources, as well as the high workload. Allow me to also welcome the new member states that have recently ratified the convention. The convention is about to reach complete universality. We encourage the Secretariat to continue its efforts in this regard to achieve a universal ratification of the convention. As a Bureau member, we have observed that raising the financial limit of the Bureau for approving international assistance requests from $25,000 to $100,000 has helped to increase the utilization of the fund. As the report reveals, requests submitted in the period rose to 73% compared to previous biennium. Though this has helped to reverse the underutilization of the fund, we believe that the committee should look into ways to develop a more targeted, strategic and long-term approach to this problem, together with the problem of diminishing extra budgetary funding. We will make further comments on this matter under Agenda Item 7. We commend the Secretariat for the initiatives taken to address the issue of overdue reports. The generous contribution of the Republic of Korea will be instrumental in improving the situation. However, despite all the efforts, this continues to be a problem. For that reason, we believe that this committee should examine the issue in depth under the relevant agenda item. We also welcome the efforts for the development of the overall results framework by the working group, thanks to the generous support of China. We believe, once adopted, it will be an important milestone in increasing the impact of the Convention. We believe that UNESCO chairs are also important actors within the framework of this Convention. We were wondering whether these centers could also be invited to annual coordination meetings. How Secretariat has been coordinating its works with the chair. On this occasion, we are glad to announce that this year, Intangible Cultural Heritage Chair has been established in Gazi University from Turkey in Ankara, whose chair is the President of our National Commission, sitting next to me. One of the important work of the committee in this biennium has been the introduction of the emergencies into the Intangible Cultural Heritage Agenda, with a comprehensive perspective, including not only armed conflict situations, but natural disasters and displacement. We commend the work, and we will have further elaborations in detail under Agenda Item 15. We take note of the developments regarding the elaboration of the outreach and communications strategy. Just as the distinguished delegations of the Philippines, we will have a couple of questions to the Secretariat. We would like to know when the strategy will be finalized, how the Secretariat is planning to implement it. Does the Secretariat foresee any financial difficulty in the implementation of the strategy? There's no doubt that the capacity building program is critical to states parties in their implementation of the Convention. We understood from the report that a number of activities have been carried out under the program. We will also have further deliberations under Agenda Item 6. Finally, one of the major challenges of this Convention continues to be the lack of financial and human resources of the Secretariat. And Secretariat is here to serve the member states. However, for them to better serve us, with an increasing number of states parties, we should look into ways on how to address this challenge in this committee meeting. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Turkey. I now invite distinguished representative of Senegal. Yeah.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Le Sénégal félicite vivement le secrétariat pour ce document, mais également pour le volume de travail exceptionnel fourni durant cette période. Nous demandons d'ailleurs comment l'équipe de M. Tim et l'ensemble des membres du secrétariat ont pu abattre ce travail au regard des restrictions et des contraintes budgétaires. Le Sénégal adhère à ces nouvelles orientations programmatiques et les appuie fortement. La nouvelle politique sectorielle de la culture au Sénégal met la culture au cœur des politiques publiques. Ainsi, pour le rapport en ce qui concerne le renforcement des capacités, nous avons engagé depuis 2016 un programme national de mise en valeur du PCI qui passe par des ateliers de formation, mais également un état des lieux sur le patrimoine immatériel au niveau national. Nous travaillons depuis donc 2016 sur ce pré-inventaire Et l'UNESCO nous a accompagnés par le bureau régional de Dakar en mettant en disposition un expert. Et nous saluons cette collaboration très étroite avec l'UNESCO. Dans le cadre également de l'éducation, nous travaillons avec les universités Cheikh Anta Diop et Gaston Berger de Saint-Louis et de Dakar depuis 2 ans dans le cadre d'un travail et également surtout avec les ONG qui nous permettent d'atteindre ces objectifs que nous visons par rapport à la mise en place d'outils de promotion et de sauvegarde du PCI. Je voudrais également signaler à cet effet que nous venons de boucler ce programme de formation le mois d'octobre dernier avec un séminaire national sur les techniques de l'inventaire, mais également l'élaboration d'outils stratégiques de mise en valeur. Nous allons continuer ce travail en 2018, toujours en collaboration avec l'UNESCO, pour l'inventaire proprement dit, mais également pour la production d'une stratégie nationale avec des plans de développement culturel au niveau de toutes les régions. Dans ce sens, d'ailleurs, nous avons déposé au niveau de l'UNESCO une demande d'assistance assez particulière que nous gérons avec le bureau de Dakar et qui sera discutée prochainement. En tout cas, nous voudrions terminer notre communication surtout en félicitant le comité et en rappelant la nécessité de collaboration avec les États parties. Merci.
Thank you very much, Senegal. Now on my list, Hungary, Republic of Korea, Algeria, Ethiopia, Cuba, Cote d'Ivoire. Now I give the floor to distinguished representative of Hungary.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, for giving me the floor. First of all, let me join delegation in thanking very much and congratulating the government of Korea and the Jeju special self-governing provincial government for the hospitality and very warm welcome in Korea that already started at Seoul Incheon Airport and accompanied us to Jeju Island. Indeed, we really appreciate the dynamism and freshness of the opening ceremony that took place yesterday, and also the sweetness of the clementines that are ripe in this season. And we look forward to what seems to be a very well-organized committee session here in Jeju Island. Let me also congratulate you personally, Mr. Chair, as President of this committee and also as Chairman of the Executive Board. When moving to the agenda item, Mr. Tim Curtis, as Secretary of the Convention, indeed deserves our great appreciation for the dedicated work of himself and of his staff, for what went into this report and what has been achieved in the past year. Let me just quickly go through some of the points that are in the report. In terms of ratification, we also welcome the near universality of the Convention, and we welcome in particular the 10 new members who joined the Convention recently. In terms of the inventorying of ICH at the national level, the Secretariat rightly noticed that this is a very, very important point in the Convention and prepared some guidelines on inventories for state parties. I'm not sure that this has received sufficient attention. We believe that the guidelines are very, very good way forward, and they suggest further reflection of this theme. Perhaps this could also be part of the operational directives, further enrich this point in the operational directives. But certainly, the inventory making at the national level bears also on the nomination process, and in particular, its application in the fulfillment of criteria R5. We highlight the important link between safeguarding ICH and sustainable development at the national level in particular. And we think that the SDGs referred to in the report, in particular SDG 4, could also be supplemented by reference to SDG 11 and SDG 12. I think there is more in the SDGs that could bear on intangible cultural heritage than only SDG 4. In terms of international assistance, we also highlight the importance of this point that also came through in the report of the President on the work of the Bureau. International assistance is gathering momentum in the implementation of the Convention. This will come also under agenda item 8A. We are of the view that substantial monitoring and analytical review of the impact of internal assistance is indeed important and should be followed up on. In terms of periodic reporting, this also will come later, but we highlight that a monitoring interface has been put in place on the website. Well, capacity building is indeed one of the backbones of the Convention. We highly appreciate the work carried out in this regard, and we warmly thank the countries that gave financial support to it. Intangible heritage and education. We would just like to pinpoint the relevance of tertiary education, as also mentioned in the report. We also know from experience in Hungary that this is indeed a key field of study for developing administrators for safeguarding ICH. In terms of the communication strategy that the report mentions, we are of the view that this is indeed very important, and that is why we would require further information in this regard, and we look forward to what has been inserted in the agenda, that some point will be given. We would like to know in particular the timeline of its implementation. And given the confusion that has been also pointed out by the evaluation body between the World Heritage Convention and this convention, we think that communication strategy is indeed very important. And also for the various listing mechanisms under this convention, I think the communication strategy would be very important to clear these matters. Finally, we agree with the summary given as for the challenges that we face in the implementation of this convention. We share the view of putting really the focus on making a meaningful contribution to the Sustainable Development Goals. We also think that education and ICH in emergencies have to be in the forefront, and they have to be underpinned by a robust capacity building program. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Hungary, for your kind intervention. Now I'd like to invite the distinguished representative of the Republic of Korea. You have the floor, sir.
감사합니다, 의장님. 이번 행사와 어제 공연에 대해서 칭찬과 감사의 말씀을 표시해 준 각국 위원님 대표께 감사의 말씀을 드립니다. 저희 대한민국 문화재청과 제주특별자치도는 정성으로 귀한 손님을 맞이하는 마음으로 이번 행사를 준비했습니다. 행사가 끝날 때까지 불편함이 없도록 최선을 다하겠습니다. First of all, the Republic of Korea, as the host country of the 12th session of the Intergovernmental Committee for the Safeguarding of Intangible Cultural Heritage, would like to congratulate you on your election as a chairman. We trust that under your able leadership, this committee will bear successful outcomes. Also, we would like to extend our deep gratitude to the Secretariat, and in particular the Secretariat for their invaluable effort in preparing for this committee. We believe that increasing number of state parties indicates the growing visibility of the 2003 Convention at the international level. We warmly welcome the 10 states that have recently ratified the Convention. In particular, we are very pleased to see our fellow countries, Thailand, East Timor, and Tuvalu from the Asia-Pacific region, to join this convention. We are also happy to note the extended application of the convention to the Netherlands for Curaçao. We recognize the Secretariat's effort in implementing the 2003 Convention in the face of its limited human and financial resources over the past years. We like the Secretariat to continue its good work in carrying out the international assistance, establishing the overall result framework for the Convention, and further strengthening capacity building program in ICH and education. Thank you.
Thank you, Republic of Korea. Now I give the floor to distinguished representative of Algeria.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Comme nous prenons la parole pour la première fois, nous souhaitons remercier la République de Corée pour la qualité de l'accueil et la générosité de son engagement tout comme nous souhaitons remercier les autorités de l'île de Jeju pour la qualité de son accueil également. Nous voulons également remercier et féliciter le secrétariat pour l'ampleur et la qualité du travail accompli. Nous voulons dire que les 175 États qui ont ratifié cette convention ne se trompent pas en adhérant à une convention servie par un secrétariat de cette qualité. Nous voulions insister là-dessus, Monsieur le Président. Nous voulons également insister sur le fait que l'avenir de la Convention, M. Curtis a insisté là-dessus, est dans le développement du renforcement des capacités. Pour avoir organisé une réunion de ce genre à Constantine, en Algérie, en 2015, nous savons maintenant, nous l'avions organisé pour les facilitateurs du continent africain, nous savons l'importance de cet axe de travail que constitue le renforcement des capacités. Nous voulons également remercier le secrétariat pour avoir fait mention de l'état d'avancement, de la préparation du centre de catégorie 2 pour la sauvegarde du PCI du continent africain et qui a été accordé à l'Algérie. Effectivement, le centre avance très bien et nous attendons de pouvoir réunir le premier conseil d'administration de cette auguste institution qui pourra avoir lieu dans les tout prochains mois. Je vous remercie, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you very much, Algeria. Now on my list, Ethiopia, Cuba, Cote d'Ivoire, and Palestine. Now I'd like to invite the distinguished representative of Ethiopia to take the floor.
Thank you very much. Since this is the first time I'm taking the floor, let me first congratulate you, Mr. Chairperson. I'm confident that we will have successful deliberation during your able guidance and leadership. Let me also congratulate your government and all the people who have worked hard to host us successfully in this beautiful island of Jeju. As the previous host, my delegation and myself know all the challenges and the beauty of being a host country. Thus, we sincerely thank you for your hospitality, and I can assure you that we are enjoying very much both your tangible and intangible heritage since we have arrived here in Jeju. I would also like to thank the Secretariat for all their hard work and its excellent report, despite the lack of resources depicted in the report of Mr. Curtis. As we all know, the number of state parties ratifying the convention has been increasing, which is very promising. The request for international assistance requests and capacity building has been growing over the years. Well, the convention is of course more and more attracting, which is the very success we can anticipate, but we would like to draw the attention over the serious consideration of the need for a better management which can parallel to the expectation of the state parties. The lack of human resources of the Secretariat is an important issue, and we need to find a solution if we wish to achieve more and to effectively implement the convention, especially in our developing world. We also appreciate the focus on education institutions to support the implementation of a safeguarding measure as mentioned in the convention, as well as the second priority as a tool to reinforce UNESCO's action for the protection of culture and the promotion of cultural pluralism in the event of armed conflict. Ethiopia has ratified the convention in 2006 and immediately started its inventory thanks to the international assistance we received from the Secretariat and based on the operational guidelines. Today, almost 90% of the intangible culture of the different communities are nationally inventorized and published in 10 volumes so far. Ethiopia has also been working very hard to raise awareness on this convention, and the 3 nominations previously inscribed in the representative list have been a great tool to increase the visibility of the convention across communities in Ethiopia. When it comes to the periodic reporting per electoral group, it will indeed enhance international cooperation mechanisms established under the 2003 convention, such as inscriptions on the lists and requests for international assistance, as well as the examination of national reports and the accreditation of NGOs. As far as Ethiopia is concerned, we believe that it will help as Africans to bring better synergies in both addressing the challenges encountered by our group as a whole, as well as in increasing the visibility of the convention. It can also help to enhance the impact of the convention and the crucial role of ICH as an enabler of sustainable development and mutual understanding. For the other items, we will intervene when the respective items will be discussed. I thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Director General Jonas Testa, former chair of this session meeting. I still have a very vivid memory of last year, Ethiopia, the session meeting. Thank you again. Welcome to Korea. I now give the floor to distinguished representative of Cuba. Madame, you have the floor.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. On voudrait remercier aussi au secrétariat pour toute l'information présentée dans le rapport. Et aussi, on veut reconnaître le travail du secrétariat de ces conventions, surtout dans un processus très complexe à l'UNESCO, d'une forte crise budgétaire et financière aussi, où le secrétariat et le personnel de l'UNESCO, c'est le point plus affecté de tout ce processus. Pour ça, on veut reconnaître tout le travail qui fait le secrétariat dans ce sujet et dans toute l'année pour le travail du comité et aussi pour l'Assemblée. Et on voudrait remercier au nom du gouvernement de Cuba l'assistance financière donnée pour le projet de Guantánamo. C'est la région de Cuba plus affectée pour tous les phénomènes naturels. Et c'est un projet très important qui nous permet d'avancer un peu sur les 120 heures du patrimoine immatériel dans cette région. Cuba réaffirme son compromis avec ces conventions et l'implémentation. On voudrait faire référence à 2 points spécifiques de ce rapport concernant la stratégie pour les travaux de l'UNESCO dans la protection des patrimoines dans cas de conflit armé, dans situation d'émergence. C'est une question très importante et nous avons fait un grand débat pendant 12 ans probablement. Et c'est très important, les travaux qui, en tant que comité, en tant que membre, et à partir de ces conventions, on peut faire pour vraiment mettre dans le cadre de ces réunions les débats plus importants pour donner quelques instructions au Conseil exécutif concernant qu'est-ce qui va faire les conventions, qu'est-ce qui va faire les comités pour contribuer à cette stratégie, qu'est-ce qu'on va travailler, parce que ce n'est pas totalement clair l'implication et la mise en œuvre des organes de convention sur cette stratégie, c'est une question qu'on avait fait beaucoup de débats sur ce sujet. D'autres points qu'on veut souligner, c'est l'importance des conventions sur le terrain. C'est une question que pour le secteur de culture, c'est fondamental. En tant que le secteur de culture, c'est le plus concentré. Le budget de ce secteur, il reste en 80% probablement dans la siège. Et c'est très important que les projets d'assistance financière, que les travaux de convention arrivent au terrain. Nous avons l'exprimé pendant la 39e conférence générale et c'est une question qu'on doit travailler ensemble, qu'on doit réfléchir comment est-ce qu'on va faire parce que les conventions sont les instruments, les outils plus importants pour pouvoir, dans le secteur de la culture, travailler avec les bureaux sur siège et aussi sur le terrain. Et on voudrait aussi souligner l'importance des petits États insulaires en développement. Et pour ça, est-ce que ces projets de Cuba, c'est un peu qu'ils couvrent ces sujets concernant le développement des petits États insulaires et le développement de son héritage, le patrimoine immatériel. Pour ça, on voudrait renouveler notre remerciement pour cette assistance financière donnée à Cuba. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you, Cuba. Now on my list, Côte d'Ivoire, followed by Palestine and Saint Lucia. Now I give the floor to representative of Côte d'Ivoire.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. La Côte d'Ivoire souhaite remercier la Corée pour l'accueil chaleureux qui nous a été réservé et félicite également ce pays pour la qualité de l'organisation de cette session. Monsieur le Président, je souhaiterais féliciter au nom de mon pays le secrétariat pour les nouvelles ratifications, en particulier les ratifications africaines. Cela prouve vraiment que la Convention est importante pour nous et cela prouve également que la sensibilisation que nous demandons chaque fois au Conseil exécutif, au secrétariat pour les ratifications, est bien faite auprès des pays. Je voulais également dire, Monsieur le Président, que nous nous réjouissons de l'augmentation des assistances internationales. Nous nous souvenons que quand nous étions en Namibie, il n'y avait pas assez de demandes d'assistance internationale et le fait d'avoir augmenté le montant de 25 000 à 100 000 $ a permis une augmentation sensible de demandes. La Côte d'Ivoire, mon pays, a fait cette demande et remercie le secrétariat parce que nous en avons bénéficié et cette assistance nous aide beaucoup pour peaufiner notre inventaire national. Par contre, Monsieur le Président, il y a également un problème par rapport au manque de ressources financières et également au manque du personnel au niveau du secrétariat. C'est très inquiétant et est-ce qu'il ne sera pas possible, Monsieur le Président, que nous prenions des décisions adéquates pour pallier cette difficulté pendant cette session? Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Okay, merci beaucoup, Madame l'ambassadeur. Maintenant, I now give the floor to distinguished permanent delegate of Palestine.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, allow me first, since this is the first time I take the floor, to congratulate you for your double election as chair of our committee and chair of the board. Well, the second thing, I would like warmly to thank the Republic of Korea for the outstanding organization of this session, starting by the kind hosting and efficient hosting of delegates and the wonderful opening ceremony of yesterday night. Je souhaite aussi remercier le secrétariat pour le travail accompli et pour la qualité de ce rapport. Et puis, je remercie tous mes collègues qui m'ont précédé, car je souscris à ce qui a été dit, et notamment en ce qui concerne la protection du patrimoine culturel intangible dans le cas des situations d'urgence et de conflits armés. Mais nous reviendrons sur cette question au point 15. We also agree to support the new approach for the periodic reporting by region. Of course, I think that it will be very efficient. Finally, I would like to ask the Secretariat for more details and clarifications regarding the outreach and communication strategy that is mentioned in the report. In the report, we can read actually that the Secretariat identified a partner company through a rigorous selection process. We don't know who is this company and we don't know what is this process. And based on this report, the strategy is being finalized. This is what is mentioned in the report. Can we have some more clarification on this issue? Thank you, Mr. Chair. And you see, I'm not so long, perfectly on time. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador. And now, Saint Lucia, followed by Afghanistan and Colombia. I'd like to invite distinguished representative of Santa Lucia.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and it is my first time of addressing this meeting. I would like to say big congratulations to you, Mr. Chairman, and wish you much success in your leadership. Heartfelt thanks also to the Republic of Korea and the beautiful Jeju Island for the excellent quality of their welcome and the organization of this meeting. Very special appreciation to Tim Curtis and the Secretariat for the obvious high level of work and achievement, and for a very excellent and instructive report. I have particular appreciation for the priority work that has been given to capacity building and ICH and education. I support the call from colleagues before for us to keep putting the ICH in emergencies on the front burner. And I speak particularly coming from the Caribbean this year. Colleagues would have known what we have been faced in this hurricane season, as we see island after island decimated, literally decimated by hurricanes. And we call for a huge focus, a robust focus on capacity building in this area. We see in the Caribbean a development of despondency and helplessness, as we see a lot of the work that has been done for generations just disappearing before us. And we call for some continued robustness in this area. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Saint Lucia. Now, Afghanistan. Yeah, you have the floor, Mr. Ambassador.
I already took the floor, Mr. Chair. Afghanistan, sorry.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Il m'en revient la position confortable de prendre la parole quand toutes les bonnes choses ont été dites. Donc je voudrais simplement rejoindre tous mes collègues qui ont remercié les organisateurs pour les féliciter aussi pour la excellente organisation et leur hospitalité. I would also like to congratulate the Secretariat for the excellent work. I wanted just to add that as it is normal, every country regards to the organization as a whole and replicates all the achievements of the organization regarding its working method, normative instruments. And I would like also to add that the Secretariat, which works with high performance, is regarded as a good model of work, as good reference, in a transparent manner, of course. But I would like to see more pedagogical work, because in every country we see the work of the Secretariat as a good model of organization of work internally. So if we could see more publication on the method of work of the Secretariat, that will be very helpful.
Okay, thank you, Permanent Delegate of Afghanistan. And I see as the last speaker, Colombia. So Colombia, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We also thank Korean government for hosting this important meeting for ICH, as well as the Secretariat for their great efforts in order for the organization of this encounter. We also would like to thank the Convention for the International Assistance given by Unesco for our project developed in the Colombian Amazon. We've been working for many years in strengthening the work with indigenous communities regarding the secret sites and the memory there. It's a very important intangible heritage for Colombia, so we would like to thank for this contribution to this process. We also want to congratulate the Secretariat for the complete report given today, and we would like to express our support and interest in work in the field of education and intangible heritage you presented today. Thank you.
Thank you, Colombia. And before... Yeah, before we move on to taking decision, I think there are many questions and encouragement on the part of committee members, and the questions will be answered by Secretariat. So I now invite our Secretary Tim Curtis to answer to your questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairperson, and I'd like to thank committee members for the comments we had on the report. And I'll address perhaps some of the questions that I see coming through. If I don't pick them all up, I apologize. There was a long list of speakers before I was able to come back to the question. There's quite a few questions about the communication strategy, which are perfectly comprehensible since we haven't presented yet. In fact, we have developed a full briefing, which we had added, which we were hoping to do after the decision, but perhaps the chair would consider putting this briefing in before the decision, since I've heard so many questions about this strategy. So I won't go straight to those questions now. I'll come to the other questions that were raised. The one thing I will address on the strategy is the funding for the strategy, and the work done was processed through the Bureau fully transparently under the other functions of the committee. And on the funding, because there were specific questions on that, the intent is not to use, of course, in the same way we do capacity building, not to use the other functions of the committee to actually implement any communication model or framework that might happen, but we use the other functions of the committee budget line to do the upstream work for the conceptual work, and any implementation would be subject to extra budgetary funding, which is the way we do, exactly the way we do the capacity building work. But I will come back to that. Perhaps I'll do that briefing later. But concerning some questions, for example, from Hungary on the work on Sustainable Development Goals and Agenda 2030, yes, of course, intangible cultural heritage could almost touch on every single Sustainable Development Goal. We have decided at this stage to make a particular focus on one at this stage, and I'm talking about only in the intangible heritage section because, as you know, the sector itself has an MLA specifically devoted to all of the conventions working and an integrated approach to the SDGs and culture. But in this framework of this convention, we have indeed given priority to SDG 4 for a number of reasons. Firstly, intangible heritage and education is also in the core text of the convention under Article 2. Secondly, we need to work where we feel we will have impact. We could, if we started trying to do every SDG, we simply wouldn't have, we can't from an operational point of view. It would be, yes, conceptually it's possible, but pragmatically it's not very feasible at this stage in terms of operations. So that is why we chose a focus on SDG 4. But nevertheless, and I think the director of the division of creativity is here. There is a specific MLA in the C5 dealing to the integration of Agenda 2030 with the culture sector programs, of which this convention, as well as other conventions, will roll out in a much broader sense on the work of the SDGs. I heard also the question about, from Turkey, concerning chairs in the field of intangible cultural heritage and Category 2 centers. It is true, the sector did in fact very recently hold a meeting with all chairs in the field of culture and all Category 2 centers. We have been holding our meetings till now with the Category 2 centers, but that's mainly because we've had more Category 2 centers and more work around that until now. Nothing stops us from including chairs in the future in that regard. Another question concerned publications from the delegate of Afghanistan and pedagogical material. Again, I will admit we have not been putting our focus in the section on publishing. We put all of our capacity building material, everything we develop, we put online. It is all accessible. But we have not, mainly because of time constraints, prioritization, looked at actually going through full hard copy publishing, also in line with the house-wide review to reduce in scope the number of hard copy publishing, so that is why we haven't done that. There may have been some other questions. I'm sorry if I haven't addressed them all, but I do appreciate many of the comments that were made, and I'm sure the team does. We hope to continue working. Concerning, would you like me, because it's a bit of I have a couple of pages to read out about the communication strategy. So perhaps this will answer some questions, such as how we chose the company, which I can see a number of delegates are very warned. I'll say out of that, we went through we followed the UNESCO rules. We had submissions from about 55 companies, and we are not tied to a specific company. So we have been giving them stage-by-stage contracts. This company is called Gyro or Gyro, depending on the language you use. It is a company with offices in Hong Kong, in Paris, in Manchester, and I believe in Dubai, so they do have a broad international scope. But perhaps I'll start reading. We had developed this item 5 bis, briefing point on the communication strategy, and with your permission, I'll read that before we go to the decision, because it concerns this strategy, and the decision, language of the decision, I understand, is concerned about a strategy as if it was a strategy document, whereas I believe we're not thinking in terms of a strategy document as you may have from a programmatic sense of view. We're talking more about a framework and helping us enhance the visibility. But if you'll allow me to start, I will then read out the intervention we prepared on the communication strategy. Of course, and I think as you've said, we know the growing impact of the convention and the growing interest with 175 state parties now. And of course, lists have played a very important role in raising awareness and gaining increased attraction in local and international media during the concentrated time of inscription. So during the weeks of inscription, there is a high visibility of the convention. However, they only represent the tip of the iceberg within a broad spectrum of safeguarding intangible cultural heritage, and they do not convey the full breadth and importance of the convention, as the real life of the convention actually takes its shape from how intangible cultural heritage is being safeguarded by different actors on the ground, and in particular by communities. These life stories are stories that should resonate with the life of the convention, and we feel there's a need to enhance the understanding and knowledge of the convention and further promote the objectives of the convention in supporting safeguarding actives through impactful and inspiring examples. Raising awareness can also be considered, as is mentioned in Article 2.3, as an act of safeguarding itself. And we know that communities themselves, they safeguard intangible heritage themselves. So giving it valor, giving it value is one of the safeguarding acts. It's not just a promotional activity. I think we all share this strong common wish to make intangible heritage better known, better understood, the importance of safeguarding more widely known and recognized. And that's why it's essential to have a robust framework for communications and outreach. Many of you have mentioned the convention is growing, and of course this becomes ever more important. It's broadened the way we think about cultural heritage in general, and as something that is evolving and dynamic. But the messages don't seem to be getting through properly in terms of our communication strategies it was. And I think some of you have been reading, we've heard somebody mention the continual confusion with World Heritage Sites and intangible heritage, with the idea of safeguarding as a dynamic, evolving practice and preservation as fixing something that doesn't change. Anyway, let me talk you through the actions we've taken. A call for a proposal was launched in September 2016 in order to identify a qualified communications agency competent in the relevant field. We had 55 communication agencies from 28 countries submit proposals, and this was then followed by a rigorous selection process and several rounds of interviews, resulting in the final selection of Gyro as the partner to accompany the development of the strategy. Gyro is a multinational communications agency that has international experience in developing successful communication and outreach strategies in the field of culture. Since January 2017, the work with Gyro and in collaboration with Unesco's Division of Public Information, including its services for the web, public and media relations, has been intense. The main assignment was to build a strategy in order to enhance positive recognition of the importance of safeguarding intangible cultural heritage, as well as generating greater awareness, understanding and impact of ICH among a diversity of target audiences. For this assignment, Gyro was asked to conduct a thorough review of all existing communication tools and material of the Convention and undertake an in-depth analysis of the insights, requirements, and expectations with regard to the outreach activities for the Convention. At this moment, I'll outline some first-hand insights from the analysis. As part of a wide consultation process, around 60 relevant stakeholders, including UNESCO field officers, states, parties, donors, accredited NGOs, national institutions, heritage professionals, and community members, were interviewed with a view to gain insights on what the 2003 conventions means to those various actors. And I'd like to take this opportunity to sincerely thank those who actively participated in this important interview process, which happened between January and March 2017. Through the consultation, great expectations for a more inspiring, impactful, and interactive communication flow were strongly expressed. In addition, Gyro thoroughly analyzed the textual and visual signs and messages that were communicated in the existing communication tools of the 2003 Convention. These included website news publications. These tools predominantly demonstrated a top-down conventional speech posture with focus on neutral delivery of information and documentation that primarily support the statutory process. That is important, it is not attractive. In addition, the communication material in general were determined to be hardly contemporary and inefficient in raising the interest and motivation of various audiences. The communicated messages were neither engaging nor empowering and failing to give any impact. So we did an audit on all of our communication, and the audit came out rather negatively in the way the convention's been communicated until now. Different methodologies were applied to this review process, which results were cross-analyzed, showing very clear and consistent orientations presented at a meeting we held in March earlier this year. The results showed that there's indeed a common desire to reset and create a common communication platform for the Convention that echoes and values the very concept of ICH and the very purpose of the Convention. So what we plan to do in the next steps of the development, emerging from that analysis, Gyro presented to the Secretariat a strategic communication framework. And I think this is where the language, and I'll come back to the decision, it's a strategic community framework, not a strategy in a program sense that we are working on. The framework includes strategic orientations and preliminary guidelines for priority actions and tools, as well as progressive deployment of the strategy. Structuring this framework are three main elements. First, the key positioning elements to fund a better communication spirit and principles, such as the vision, the mission, the values. Second, the target group matrix that outlines their status, needs, and expectations. The main target groups include the wider UNESCO, including field officers, state parties, institutions, and NGOs, working in the field of ICH, as well as heritage professionals, and also require the deeper involvement of communities and practitioners. As well, of course, hopefully to a wider outreach to the untapped public, and particularly the youth. And finally, the list of priority creative tools that are needed for immediate development. So what would we see as the following steps? The next step we hope to do is establish a narrative for the 2003 convention by developing concrete templates. We want to develop templates for priority communication tools. These would include things like publications, newsletter, web page, a communication guide that would present some basic graphic materials. We're trying it is important that our communication tools emphasize, of course, the human relevance, and that's where we found most of our communication was extremely statutory, extremely process-oriented, and didn't bring out that kind of human relevance of ICH, and to convey the dynamics of ICH, hoping to explore its full potential, to promote respect for differences, and build cohesive links across generations, communities, and cultures, and also trying to counter antagonistic use of intangible cultural heritage. So we'll seek to develop a real conversation through a set of relevant messages for the different audiences. It'll be important to give a direct voice to communities and their safeguarding efforts and further engage youth so that they can be an active part of ICH safeguarding. We'll have to ensure that future generations will still be able to benefit from the rich array. So, who are we planning to be involved? Of course, concerted and joint efforts among involved actors. Once the basic creative tools are developed, we hope this will allow for consistent implementation by the Secretariat, but of course other actors, particularly field officers and state parties, local actors and communities. States hopefully will be supported in their national initiative of awareness raising and outreach, and set out as one of the 5 performance indicators in the C5, which was just adopted by the General Conference. So, I don't want to read the whole thing because I know this was meant to be a separate point. I think this is the thing. We'll show you, we have a 1-minute little film to show of just something we just tapped during the youth conference to give an idea of how we want to change our communication around the convention. Could we have the film?
I think color, and I think community, and I think noise.
Cultura, tradiciones, raíces y esencias.
When I hear intangible cultural heritage, I think about skills, knowledge, customs, ideas.
Culture, ancestry, and what came before.
Definitely memory, flexibility, very creative.
Family, identity, courage, strength, resilience.
Oneness. We talk about traditions, we talk about values, and we talk about things that connect to people, things that relate to us, things that we can look back as our heritage and as our culture.
You have dancing and you have music, and it's always lively. So lively is definitely at the core of living heritage.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Secretary. But this is a very important topic. So I think that Director for Creativity, Ms. Jyoti, and ADG for Culture, they'd like to add something to the presentation given by Tim Curtis. Okay, Ms. Jyoti.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to add to the point that Mr. Curtis made about the SDGs in response to some questions that were raised. Across the culture sector, of course, we recognize very much and are committed to supporting the member states in the implementation of the 2030 agenda and the SDGs. If you look at the work plan for the biennium, the 39C5 that we've just approved for the next 2 years, that has already in it we have identified about 23 targets out of 169 targets across 9 of the 17 goals. And this is across all the culture conventions and programs and other instruments like recommendations that we have in the culture sector. And of course, the Intangible Heritage Convention plays a very important part in this, and so we're looking at the relationship of the Intangible Heritage Convention to these goals and the implementation of these goals across several of these 23 targets that I mentioned. Thank you.
Thank you. ADG?
Thank you, Chairperson. I'd just like to stress one point that was raised by some delegates, Cuba and others, on the importance of the work on emergencies. Of course, there will be an item on this, item 15, so we will have the possibility of exploring this. But let me just say up front that this is a key dimension of the work of UNESCO today and in the years to come. As you have seen in the past 2 years, the General Conference has moved to the approval of a strategy. Initially, the strategy was focused on the conflicts, the one that was approved in 2015, but just a few weeks ago, the General Conference also adopted an annex that includes also natural disasters. We have now a complete, set of, a complete vision on the emergencies, and I think UNESCO can and should really play an important role on this. Now, the tools are, of course, our convention, so therefore the Intangible Heritage Convention can play a very, very important role in the different areas that concern emergencies. Of course, the preparedness, risk prevention and preparedness is very, very important. The response when there is a disaster or a conflict, and the post-conflict or post-disaster reconstruction. We have in the convention a tool that is very close to communities, and that's very important because communities are the protagonists in these difficult situations. And we have now, as you have seen perhaps by reading the paper on item 15, already started some experimentation through the use of the Emergency Heritage Fund on the role that a convention and communities can play in these critical situations. This is an area of work that is with us and will remain with us in the years to come. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, ADG. And it's now 12:32, so it's the intention of the chair to adjourn the morning meeting here, and we will get back to afternoon meeting, and we'll take the decision. Please, ladies and gentlemen, before you leave the room, I'd like to give the floor to the Secretary for a few practical announcements.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. A number of activities are taking place during the lunch break. As mentioned earlier, a press conference will take place in room 303A on the 3rd floor at 12:30 p.m. right after the closing of the session. And of course, all media present are invited to attend. There's also a dedicated media center for press in room 300, which is also on the 3rd floor. As I said earlier, lunch break is from 12:30 to 2:30 p.m. Committee members and a selected number of participations with ministerial status are invited by the host country at the Ocean View on the 5th floor of this conference center. There are 2 restaurants for the participants, Deliza on the 3rd floor and the cafeteria on the 1st floor, and there are ushers kindly deployed by the host countries to help you find your way. As I said this morning, please keep your badges on at all times to allow for proper identification and access to the meeting. And please, those who have received financial assistance, could we ask you to please go to room 503 on this floor between 2 and 6 p.m. We need the signature of those who've traveled under the Intangible Cultural Heritage. For those states who wish to hold performances and or present audiovisual material after the examination of their nomination file, please inform the Secretariat as soon as possible and provide us with relevant electronic files as necessary in order to facilitate our preparation. Please note that such material and performances should last 2 minutes maximum. I'll quickly go over some of the various events happening on the side of our official agenda, and these include the exhibition organized by ICHCAP in the foyer on 3rd floor, an exhibition by the International Association for Falconry and Conservation of Bird Prey, also on the 3rd floor. There is another exhibition organized by the Cultural Heritage Administration with the International Network, with ICHCAP on the Asia-Pacific region on the 5th floor. The Cultural Heritage Administration also has its own exhibition on the 5th floor. For complete and updated information on the side events, I encourage everyone to go either to the ICH website and its dedicated page for side events, or look at the TV screen outside, just at the entry of this room to my right. We are meeting again promptly at 2:30. Please make sure you're on time. The conference room will remain open during lunchtime, so please do not leave your personal belongings. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Now the morning meeting is adjourned.